Good afternoon. Today, the people of Israel are under attack, orchestrated by a terrorist organization, Hamas. In this moment of tragedy, I want to say to them and to the world and to terrorists everywhere that the United States stands with Israel. We will not ever fail to have their back. We'll make sure that they have the help their citizens need and they can continue to defend themselves. You know, the world's seen appalling images. Thousands of rockets in the space of hours raining down on Israeli cities. When I got up this morning, started this at 7:30, 8 o'clock, my calls. Hamas terrorists crossing in Israel, killing not only Israeli soldiers, but Israeli civilians. In the street, in their homes, innocent people murdered, wounded, entire families taken hostage by Hamas. Just days after Israel marked the holiest of days in the Jewish calendar. It's unconscionable. You know, when I spoke with Prime Minister Netanyahu this morning, I told him the United States stands with the people of Israel in the face of these terrorist assaults. Israel has the right to defend itself and its people, full stop. There's never justification for terrorist attacks. And my administration's support for Israel's security is rock solid and unwavering. Let me say this as clearly as I can. This is not a moment for any party hostile to Israel to exploit these attacks to seek advantage. The world is watching. I've also been in contact with the King of Jordan, spoken with members of Congress, directed my national security team to engage with their Israeli counterparts, military to military, intelligence to intelligence, diplomat to diplomat, to make sure Israel has what it needs. I've also directed my team to remain in constant contact with leaders throughout the region, including Egypt, Turkey, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Oman, the UAE, as well as our European partners and the Palestinian Authority. It's also a terrible tragedy on a human level. It's hurting innocent people. Seeing the lives that have been broken by this, the families torn apart, it's heartbreaking. And Jill and I are praying for those families who've been impacted by this violence. We grieve with those who've lost their loved ones, lost a piece of their soul. We have hope for swift recovery for many who have been wounded. But we're going to remain in close touch with Prime Minister. I personally am going to remain in close contact with Prime Minister Netanyahu as this situation continues to develop. And let there be no mistake, the United States stands with the state of Israel, just as we have from the moment the United States became the first nation to recognize Israel 11 minutes after its founding 75 years ago. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, was there an intelligence failure in the lead up to this attack?
Mr. President, can you tell us what Bibi asked you specifically for support?
I believe that too. I believe that this will be the most important election of our lives because this country is headed in a horrible, horrible direction. And you saw what took place today in Israel, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But this country is just headed so badly. The Israeli attack was made because we are perceived as being weak and ineffective and with a really weak leader, and we will discuss it in a few minutes. But isn't that a shame what's happening all over the world? Things are not what they were just 3 years ago. You take a look. They weren't ever as good, and now they are really probably maybe the worst we've ever seen in terms of our country. When you look at the Hamas terrorist invasion of Israeli territory, and the murder of Israeli soldiers today, and the brutal murder of citizens is an act of savagery that must and will be crushed, it has to be dealt with very powerfully. This is a time where the United States needs leadership. We don't have leadership. But Israel is at war, and the United States obviously is going to stick with Israel and strongly. The war happened for two reasons. The United States is giving and gave to Iran $6 billion, $6 billion, over hostages. And, you know, there was a very good trade. They got 5 hostages. We got 5 hostages. Okay, that's the good news. The bad news is, and their hostages were tough, by the way, I have to tell you. That was, okay, let's assume they're doing just fine. But it was 5 for 5. But in addition to that, we agreed to free up $6 billion. And that is an absolute disaster. And I would not be at all surprised if part of that tremendous wealth that they just accumulated went into all of a sudden watching this level of aggression. They didn't have that level of aggression with me. They didn't have it. This would have never happened with me either. You know what wouldn't have happened? Ukraine wouldn't have happened. Taiwan and all this tough talk with Taiwan wouldn't have happened. And what's going on with Israel right now, people were shocked. I wasn't shocked because 2 weeks ago we gave them $6 billion. The Israeli attack was made because we are perceived as being weak and ineffective and with a really weak leader. The Hamas terrorist invasion of Israeli territory, and the murder of Israeli soldiers today, and the brutal murder of citizens is an act of savagery that must and will be crushed. It has to be dealt with very powerfully. This is a time where the United States needs leadership. We don't have leadership. But Israel is at war, and the United States obviously is going to stick with Israel.
Hamas רוצה לרצוח את כולנו.
Hamas wants to murder us all. This is an enemy that murders children and mother in their homes, that slaughters and massacres our citizens, including children who simply went out to enjoy the holiday. What happened today has never been in Israel, and I will make sure that it does not happen again. The entire government is behind this decision. The IDF will immediately use all its strength to destroy Hamas capabilities. We will destroy them, and we will take mighty vengeance for this black day that they have forced on the state of Israel and its citizens. All of the places which Hamas is deployed, hiding and operating in that wicked city, we will turn it into an island of ruins. I am telling Gaza's people to leave those places now because we will take action everywhere. I say to Hamas, you are responsible for their well-being. Israel will settle the score with anyone who harms even one strand of hair on their heads. When such a terrorist attack occurs, everyone who values life must stand in solidarity. In Ukraine, we are especially sympathetic to what has happened. Thousands of rockets in the sky of Israel, people killed right on the streets, cars with civilians being bulleted, the humiliation of hostages. Terror has brought all this, unfortunately, also to the streets of Ukrainian cities and villages. Our position is absolutely clear. Anywhere in the world, anyone who brings terror and death must be held accountable. Today's terrorist attack on Israel was carefully prepared. The whole world understands which terror sponsors could have encouraged and ensured the organization of this attack.
First, just let me say, as Americans this morning, we all stand with the state of Israel, who is undergoing a terrorist attacks by Hamas, by Iranian-backed militants. They not only have a right to defend themselves, they have a responsibility to defend themselves with overwhelming force. We will stand by them when they do.
Gracias.